Gentlemen, welcome back to the shop. Today, a treat especial. We're going to go over the three various sander knob polishers. What you get, what you get from the Hazard Fart, the Earthquake. You will notice some similarities between the middle of the load Milwaukee and the Earthquake. Recall when we were, well, here's the FAP-off, 500 Kanaki Stan Copex this cost me. Still sitting on the tray. Nice. Despite sitting on the healing bench for over a month with a bowl of white rice as a sacrifice to the gnome. Still not back together, but recall that we did that stubby impact previously. Not that stubby impact. It might be, it might be short, but it sure is thin. It was a Hazat and an Earthquake and a Taiwanese M2000 stubby impact, all the same tool, what was branded differently for different price points in the market. Amazing that we dug into that and found that. So I'm wondering if this isn't that. Go ahead, start the clock. This will only take but 2 pumps. Jump. Speaking to, it's not the wand, it's the mage. As the Duclaw will tell you, you got a dick like a needle, you got a fuck like a sewing machine. Fick dick. Airbeden. No, we're into some red there. I don't much care for these blow molded cases anyways. Just bung up the works. This mightn't be the way to go about it. Time! Whoop-see doodle. No one could have possibly foreseen this packaging damage. Straight out of the box from the Hazard Fart. She's already deckered. Catch! A clue! Those are hard to come by around here. All the gear and no idea. Am I right? Now, this dingus dangus end has metric thread form, which is a pain right in the cunning linguals. But this guy got the quarter, not 20, but the other one. I think it's 28, quarter 28, which happens to fit the FAP-off accoutrement. So if you bought a FAP-off and she shit the bed and you don't feel like sending it in for a $120 rebuild, you'd rather get a brand new part, then all of your accoutrements are gonna fit. Now, this come out of the Milwaukee kit, and you will see a family resplendence. Same. Again with the quick dip roll lock. This is out of the Earthquake pack. This is the Milwaukee. Different thread form. Same font, same lettering, same shape, same material, same. Well, it's most of the business ends are the same. One thing that's not is the buffer. Quite a bit more skookum on the Milwaukee. We'll look at the other blow molded case. Don't need that. We've got a plastic handle. It's also got little knobs here for preventing the ingress of schmoo into the holes. Doesn't really matter on account of that going right in the fucking bucket, along with the blow molded case. Yeah, a portent of things to come. Everybody's got to have a retirement plan. Rooting through the garbage. Ta-da! We're going to compare the thread forms. See if they're not the same. An additional process here on the Milwaukee. They chamfered the hole here. gone in dry, real, yeah, razor sharp. But you see how that, you know, Granny wants to polish a knob. She got the arthritis in her wrist. She's going to need a handle. Yeah, same thread form for the handle. Some of the information gleaned from the stubby impact was that factories will make any grade of tool you want, and depending on how much fit and finish, how good the fit and finish is, you get a different cost. And we saw that in the impacts. Now in this case, it seems to be very likely the same thing, where if you want a higher end tool, if you want to pay a little bit more, they do a little bit more finishing. What I'm checking here is just to see the depth of that pre-drill, 5.7. Yeah, same depth. A little bit different here in the mag well, the battery compartment. We got but the one G-slip clip in here to keep the clamshell together, and we got two on the earthquake. Of course, there is a proper fastener in the Milwaukee at the top of the mag well. Correction, we have one. Oh, go buy a lottery ticket. Found her. We're into the clamshell here. We'll look at the white coat black art, well, white clipboard black art of injection molding, manufacturing, engineering. So we have the typical PA6 GF30, which is glass fiber reinforced nylon, and a TPR, that's a thermoset rubber, generally good chemical resistance, abrasion resistance, very well affixed. You can see the difference in the molding here. Maybe quite a bit more shots in here, had some polishing issues at the ejection pin points, a little bit rougher surface finish on the mold itself in some of these compound radii. But more detail on the air outlets, air intakes being on the back side here. A little small air intake, but lots of room for air to egress, and we have some diagonal gusseting here to stiffen that up and prevent the ingress of fingers on the Milwaukee. A little bit bigger, but they're so thick you wouldn't be too worried about breaking them out. You know, some tools you see, especially older ones, where these little lats or slats are real long and thin and they break out. And the battery terminal is on its own molded part. Terminals themselves nickel plated, copper more than likely. Yeah, it'd have to be copper, and then looks like some solid wires, little tiny wires. They aren't solid, but they are stranded, and good soldering. No L. I'm going to start saying wetting too. No L. It's a little bit more downscale with the 5mm LED. This would be an RGB LED, stood off and through holes. But even on these little tiny boards, they've added Celastic. We never used to see that, say, 5-10 years ago. But they're starting to skookum fact some of these tools. Now here's where the similarities end. In the Milwaukee, the trigger was either a Default or a, I don't recall, but oh no, it was a Marquardt. It was a Marquardt, wasn't it? Or was it? Here's the, no, the Marquardt was in the FAPOC. So this would have been a Default, that ubiquitous iron oxide red color, Chinese switch with a French name brand. But that switch, all it was doing was sending a potential, well, it was cutting the power, but it was also sending a potentiometer signal to the brain box in order to control the speed. In this case, there is no brain box. It's all integral in this switch, as witnessed by the International Rectifier MOSFET here, single MOSFET, in order to get your chopping pulse width modulated to get your DC motor to chooch at different speeds. A little heat sink on there, and then a freewheel diode, pretty big beefy freewheel diode. All external on that switch. A lot of handwork on that guy. J level, 10.8 volts DC, Intertech, and the TUV mark of the beast as well. No bellows on there. Now this is interesting. The actuator is on an ovoid rod, so it cannot twist. It's kind of interesting. I don't think we've seen one of those before. No positive snap action, just the barest whiff of trying. Very light detent on that spring mechanism in there. And it's also a one-size-fits-all switch because it's got forward and reverse. However, you do not need reverse. It'd be interesting to see. Let's put the battery in her and let's see if it does indeed go in reverse. Or if we just fry the MOSFET. Carefully. Positive to positive, negative to negative. Look away. Try not to get blow up on your face. That is turning counterclockwise from the harmonic balancer end. Here's the lock position. And no blow-ups. And running clockwise from the harmonic balancer end. Okay, so if and you wanted to, for some reason, use this in reverse so that you consistently... Oh, there's a malicious practical joke involved in this somewhere. So if and you had a buddy and you wanted to fuck with him, in about 15 minutes, you don't go for coffee, you take his apart and you fiddle fuck with this a little bit and get this to go into reverse, then this will constantly be unthreading. It's the little things. On the motor side, just a bog standard brushed DC motor. In the Milwaukee, it was a Mabuchi brand name. This one, oh, it's the same. Yeah, Mabuchi. So good name brand motor on that guy. Gearbox assembly. We're gonna see a planetary gear set without the outer ring. Oh no, different gear set. Different gear set on this guy. We have smaller planet gears, much larger pinion, and the planet carrier is all sintered metal. So different, different arrangement. Most definitely a different speed out. Let me just get my words untanked, untangutated. 7,600 RPMs, 8,300 RPMs max. So that's the difference. And we can see that the gearbox is indeed different. Okay, so this is a double reduction. Well, it's a double planetary gear set. In the Milwaukee, recall, there was no outer ring. There was one outer ring that slid up and down, but the initial, if I'm not mistaken, the initial input stage didn't have an external ring gear. And what are the odds we get that back together? Nice big beefy bearing in there. The trouble with tribology is if you keep feeding them, they keep multiplying. We're looking at this bearing, 6901. So that would be 12 and 24 on the OD, roughly 300, 350 pounds static, double that for dynamic, 36, 3,500, RPMs. And they've, the interesting thing about commodity items, when you're talking about bearings, you're talking about minimizing the friction, you're talking about tribology, is you're more worried about cost than anything. You want the most bog standard bearings, what you can get your dirty dick beaters on. And in this case, the Milwaukee on the front side big beefy bearing, and it is very likely quite a bit cheaper than this oddball one with the thin cross section. Just by account, they'd be using more of the other things. So this guy, there is a marked difference though in the OD and ID. This guy probably 30 millimeters on the OD, and this guy seems to be about 24, maybe 28. Yeah, probably 24, and this guy's probably 30, something like that. So this would be good for 600 pounds static, which would be, for you metric types, 25, 28, somewhere in there, newtons. And it drops down to about half that for that small cross section. Of course, bearings are point loads. You have those balls in there, so you got to use them in pairs. You can't locate something on just a point load on a shaft, because it'll weeble wobble all over the place. And of course, the further out that you go, the more stable it's going to be, because there are inherent tolerancing in the bearing itself that allows it to weeble wobble. So this bearing quite a bit smaller, and very likely, well, it doesn't look quite a bit smaller, but it's very likely half the load capacity. So it'd be interesting to see the bill of materials cost for these bearings. Now you see the die casting, they got her down. High silicon for good nucleation, nice, lots of detail in there, and no weird drafts and no weird flashing at all. They got that nailed down. Just craptacular paint job on the thing, and we had the plugs in there from the paint. They just left them in there. Difference in the manufacturing on the spindle end is that for the locking mechanism, they've through drilled it. They've through drilled this straight across, and on the Milwaukee, they've gone in and just drilled it to depth on either side. So they've done two processes as opposed to straight through on this guy. There is two diametrically opposed slots, and you can see that pin weeble wobble in there pretty good. So there is quite a bit of slop in that pin, and in this guy, tough to turn. Because we're driving the motor backwards. Yeah, roughly the same amount of slop in this guy. Unfortunately for us, there's no glaring horrors in this. In this case, it looks like tu manges ton sou. You eat what you pay for. The Earthquake brand appears to be kind of an upmarket within the Hazard Fart, where you actually get a decent tool for the money. Now, the bill of materials cost is clearly marginally lower than the Milwaukee, because there's no control board, there's no battery controller, there's a chintzy instead of a nice, small, compact surface mount device on there. It's the old school LED. No, it doesn't make no, never mind, but you can just see that they've gone and reduced the cost potentially. So if I were a betting man, and I am, I would bet that this is made in the same factory but to slightly different specifications. Different dog food coming out of the same rendering plant, feeding a farm dog, or if you're feeding a West Vancouver soccer mom's Pomeranian. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying. It all comes from the same horses. What we ought to do is test these good and proper wise, but somebody already has. The battery mooch, we just flash up the light and get on the gargle, the bat light. These are LG out of Korea, HD2s, 18650, of course the size 18 around, 650 millimeters long. HD2s are good batteries according to the battery mooch. They well output 25 amperes that they're rated for at the constant current, and they meet their 2000 milliampere rating. So these are not 3000 milliampere rated, they're not super high capacity, but that's okay. That means that the longevity is going to be there. They're all things being equal, you get more oomph out of the battery. It doesn't last as long. So these are a very good, balance between that you get good life out of them and reasonable expectation of performance. Far from a foregone conclusion as whether or not I'll get this back together. Now, I will say that since I got this and the other, I've been using it steady. Who'd have thunk you'd be so interested in polishing knobs and so forth? But if it's around, you use it. It's the most used tool in the shop now. As soon as a part cage, yeah. And of course, there are the pneumatic versions around if you polish, you want to polish a big chunk of aluminum or something like that. But just for quick jobs, this here's the Cockford Ollie. As you might expect from an electric knob polisher, it does come in the hand. Oh, look at that. I'm mistaken. There are some surface mount RGBs, or just colored lights for showing the battery charge indication. This guy is actually just the light, the work light. There you have it. Same, but different and reasonably robust. I can't use that robust word anymore on account of Louis Rossman and the right to repair tribunals going on in the States. Robust. But I did speedify the design. He's stupid like a fox. Let me show you something now, what you could do. And then you can speed it on and on. Gotta go garbage picking again. In the words of our patron saint, Han Solo, prior to the Disney ones, made a couple special modifications myself. P.S. You're welcome, Hazard Fart. With all that money you make, why not hire an industrial designer to get us past the greebling spaceship, breathless 1970s space nose cone tits era of tools? I hear Tom Sachs works cheap. What are the odds we get a channel reach around on that new improved version? Slim to nil. I would say that ought to do her. Oh yeah. I'm used to it though. I ain't saying. I'm just saying. BBC's James May, the reassembler. We all know. Oh, might not look like much, but I got it where it counts. And my wife, at least once or twice a year. Look, Prudence, a sharp edge. Prudence, the safety goat, ladies and gents. Now, what are the odds that drives you fucking bananas now, because it's constantly going to be going the wrong direction. But can't make a few eggs without busting some omelets. There you go. A braid's right through the mill scale. It's amazing. It works. Not too bad. Same as this one, but it comes in mighty handy. And the other part about it, you get yourself a Black Widow fry, coupons and so forth. You go through Trump's wall, Frostback, and into the States to buy yourself one of these. And you wait at the right time. You go in the Sultan's tent there, the harem. You get yourself a couple of these. You got to watch out what you catch in there. Sometimes packs a bag. Thanks for watching. Keep your dick in a vice.